first episode of Subtext Discourse, a podcast about contemporary art, the art world, and life in general. I'm your host, Michael Dooney. Right now you're hearing Vienna-based conceptual artist Chris Fortescue. He was here in Berlin for Gallery Weekend at the opening of his solo exhibition at Jarvis Dooney Galerie. We spoke about his artistic practice and what motivated his move from Sydney to Vienna, so I hope you enjoy hearing our conversation. Good that we have the time that we can do this, and yeah, obviously we're really grateful that you had an exhibition with us at the gallery.
I'm really grateful for you hosting it.
Yeah, no, it's been really nice. I thought rather than going straight into this current exhibition, this is all new work, maybe we can get a bit more of a backstory, because I knew your work before from the photography context, so when you were showing the stills and the work you did in the 90s and that period, and yeah, I guess I've come to learn over the weekend from really the late 90s, early 2000s, didn't use a camera at all. It's mostly acquiring images or using existing photography, but then also using installation, using sound, noise is a big part of your practice as well.
Yeah.
So maybe if we kind of go back to the start, and how did you come to start thinking, okay, I'll be a contemporary artist, I'll focus on these things, like how did it
That's far.
Well, you know, you don't have to say.
We know that you're far.
Yeah. I mean, I know that you're from Sydney, you're living in Vienna.
Yeah.
But even kind of a rough thing of what kind of happened in between, like to go from start to finish.
It's hard to say. I mean, back to art school kind of thing.
Yeah, like what was the motivation, or what was the
motivation for going to art school?
Yeah.
The motivation for going to art school was a decade spent in the real world and thinking that it's like really bad out there.
Yeah.
And when I realised that I could go to art school, it was like I don't know, it was like a saving. It's like being saved somehow by a place where you could do whatever you liked and think whatever you liked without sort of being constrained by. Or at the time, I thought without being constrained by, was a place where you could think freely.
Yeah. Well, what were you doing before then? What was your
when I left school, I just did a variety of kind of horrible jobs, basically. When a lot of my friends went to university, but I didn't really have anything that I wanted to do at university.
Yeah.
Lots of people went there because they thought that this would be a good job or that would be a good job or some other thing, but none of them were fired by vocational passion or anything like that. It didn't seem to me anyway, and I certainly wasn't. So I thought, well, why bother to go to university and have more of this kind of thing that I've been doing in high school if I haven't actually got something that I'm passionate about?
Yeah.
And I didn't. So I just, joined the workforce, joined the Australian materialistic rat race, basically.
Yeah.
And got very disillusioned with that over a period of time. And then I travelled a bit, spent some time in London, and it was there that I realised that art schools were a thing, and I could go to art school, because I didn't have any background in the arts at all. Okay. My parents weren't artistic or particularly cultured, so I just had a normal Australian suburban upbringing.
Yeah.
Without any relevance to.
But it was art school in Australia that you went to?
Yeah. Well, I thought about going to art school in the UK. But in the end, I came back to Australia and ended up going to Sydney College of the Arts, which was, at the time, in retrospect, I think probably it was one of the best art schools in the world.
Yeah? What, just to give us a sense of the context, what period? This was in the 80s?
Well, it was established by the Whitlam government in the 1970s with the Australian Film and Television School.
Okay.
And it was part of that kind of Whitlam Renaissance thing, and it was just given carte blanche, really.
Yeah.
And it didn't operate like any of the other art schools that were around at the time. It was just really fresh. And it was also somehow like a real artist practice would be like, because it didn't have any proper premises. When I went to Sydney College of the Arts in the early 80s, I was there in the first half of the 80s. And it didn't have any proper premises. You know, it was.
When you say no premises, like a location, or there was no agenda or a focus?
No, well, it didn't actually have a proper location. It was spread out all over the place. It was like a cuckoo. It was in these different spots. It was part of it was in a disused primary school, and part of it was in what used to be a biscuit factory. Mm-hmm. But it was all just really super rough and cobbled together. And we used to go to theory classes at the Police Boys Club in Balmain and stuff like that. Yeah. It was, well, where can we get a venue this week? You know.
Yeah.
So it was really ad hoc, and I thought that was great. Really, really good. It was sort of like what it would be in the real world. Mm. Although I didn't know it at the time, really, but that's what it was like.
Yeah. But you feel that's changed a lot since?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot more, I guess, institutionalised.
Yeah.
For want of a better word.
Yeah. Yeah, it was institutionalised, and it was everybody wanted to make it more normal. They all regarded that open-ended, rubbishy thing as being not legitimate somehow, and it wouldn't be given status.
Okay.
So everybody was trying to get better premises, a more secure future, they thought.
Okay, yeah.
And they ended up in the old lunatic asylum at Calm Park, which is beautiful heritage harbourside real estate.
Yeah.
And by that stage, I didn't have anything to do with Sydney College anymore, but when I moved there, I thought, And subsequently, of course, there's been a lot of trouble with the university, because then after it moved there, it was still an independent body. It was part of the independent group of art schools in Australia, but then they all got absorbed into the university system, during the Hawke government years. And then they had to toe the line, like all of the art schools did when they did that. Which wasn't really compatible with what I would have thought to be a good art education.
Yeah.
So they just kind of went. It became more and more ossified, I think, as all of those institutions tend to do after a while. They can't stay fresh forever.
No, of course not. I think like with all movements, I think even how you're describing it, it's even. How you still make a comparison like so many of us do, that kind of punk could only exist in its form as a short period, because it's going to evolve and it's going to change. Yeah. And it can only, like, that kind of chaotic environment isn't sustainable long term, even though it's so conducive to so much creativity and inspiration. Yeah. And then, so when you were at the Sydney College of Arts, you were like specialised in photography, or was
no? It's funny because I did. My major subjects there were photography, sculpture, and sound.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That's appropriate then.
Yeah, and I haven't really I've just done that really ever since. Mm-hmm. That mixture, not simultaneously necessarily, but all those threads have been there all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And so going from that then, because they're almost quite separate really, like photography, sound and installation, even though we can kind of see through your work that they do have a lot in common. But your initial focus was photography, or you were trying to mix the initial ones together?
Well, the problem was I didn't have a focus.
Yeah.
It's a sort of photographic joke.
Yeah.
But I didn't really settle on any one thing as being something that I could just absolutely concentrate on. I was always being pulled around in different directions by
because if I think to your early work, it's almost like you're using photography to document the sculptures that you were creating.
Well, that's how it started.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was working in the photography area at Sydney College, most of the people there were, they were open to contemporary work. Everybody there was super open, but they also had a background in much more conventional kinds of photography, black and white photography, large format photography, street photography.
Yeah.
And the idea of the fine print somehow was there. That's what they that whole craft thing that they were interested in imparting.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have any interest in it at all. I thought photography was interesting, but I was more interested in the kind of photography that was not regarded as being craft photography. I was really interested in performance documentation from the 1970s and stuff, and the structuralist influence on things like the camera documenting its own condition and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I thought those things were much more interesting than any other things. Programmatic uses of the material of the technology.
Mm-hmm. And you think that's why you eventually abandoned taking your own photos? Or was that much later?
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I think I abandoned taking my own photographs. I think when I realised, well, not necessarily when I realised, but the last body of photographs that I took, that I exhibited, after I'd made them all, it was sort of like, it was the beginning of the 90s, and Photoshop sort of made the kinds of things that I was spending hours and hours and hours and hours trying to organise in front of a camera.
Yeah.
And then get printed in the way I wanted it to be printed, and then not destroyed when it goes onto the wall, because we were working with Cibachrome and those kind of materials that were really fragile. It was a nightmare. It was just a nightmare. I didn't want to have anything to do with it anymore. In fact, I showed this body of photographs, and it caused a real lot of angst.
Oh, from the public, or
no, just from me personally. The public really liked them.
Yeah,
they were sold to all the major collections and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual business of making the photograph and then getting it printed and mounted and on a gallery wall was just like horror.
Okay,
it was really bad. And after that, I thought, I'm not going to do that anymore. And the next exhibition I had after that was a show in Melbourne, and I basically, it was just this. I'd been working with shapes, just kind of. I was trying to figure out how I could make a shape which was had some kind of representational connection. So you could look at this shape and think, is that a silhouette of a? Maybe that's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it wasn't anything that you could hover between representation and abstraction.
Okay.
And I just cut them out of wallpaper, the sort of wallpaper that you get in pizza parlours of brick, fake brick wall.
Oh yeah.
And I just took them down to the gallery, rolled up, tube under the arm in the plane, got to the gallery, stuck them on the wall, and they looked really great. They looked fantastic. They had this really strange, these things are kind of sort of a strange play between depth and on the surface.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell which was is that where he's removed the plaster to reveal a brick behind, or what's going on there? Then you get up close and go, oh, okay, right. But that was great. And then after the show was finished, I pulled it off the wall, screwed it in the board, threw it in the bin. It was just absolutely fantastic, So, I don't know.
So I guess the performative and sculptural aspect at that point were probably more in the foreground of what you were doing, rather than the photographing.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it ended up as a photograph again, as a documentary photograph, but that wasn't something which was going to be exhibited as a thing. It was just like, I do the work in the space, it leaves a record, fine, but the record is not something to be collected or treated in a special way. It's just it's the same kind of thing as the documentary photography from the 1970s. Was treated as just something that's going to record this event.
Yeah, okay. So it's more
it can be a bad photograph and still work, kind of thing.
Yeah. And was it after this period or through this time that you started doing more sound installation pieces, like the one with the air conditioner and the earthquake?
No, that's much
later.
Yeah, that's 2000s. That's in this century.
Okay.
No, I think during the 90s, I just the things that I made were the kinds of things that I would have photographed earlier, but I just didn't photograph them. I just put them in rooms.
Oh, okay.
And I used a lot of found photographic material, like photographic wallpaper, and there was one installation that I made where I found a photograph in the street. It was a medical transparency, and just a 35mm slide that had been under people's feet and stuff. It was sort of mangled.
Yeah.
And I just printed that and put it in the gallery.
Okay.
And I was also interested in things that happen by chance, that just sort of, for some reason, you're just kind of moving along and you're doing one thing, and then suddenly something happens and there's some different thing comes in, and how you would deal with that. And there was one thing where I was preparing food, just, cutting up food, and I cut myself. And it wasn't a really bad cut, but, so I just bandaged it up, and next day I kind of pulled off the Band-Aid, and it was a cut about 1 centimetre long and probably a couple of millimetres deep.
Yeah.
And it had sort of stopped bleeding and it was clean and everything, but it kind of gaped open to reveal my flesh underneath, and I went, that was fantastic. So I photographed it.
Yeah. In
the same way that you would photograph something nowadays and whack it on Instagram or something like that.
Yeah. So how was the rest of the photographic climate and I guess contemporary art around what you were doing in Sydney at the time? Like, were people responding to it well, or it wasn't really fitting in with the rest of the narrative?
No, I think that what I was doing was what a lot of people were doing all over the joint, really.
Yeah.
There were lots of, and also I guess it coincided with the struggle between the kind of photography that contemporary artists were making and the kind of photography that people who were more concerned with traditional approaches to photography were making. There was a struggle there for visibility, and people who were from that traditional thing thought that what we were doing was kind of like rubbish.
Yeah.
What is it? It's just nothing. It hasn't got any kind of content, or it's that whole thing about craft. It's really, because I can remember having a discussion with at a gallery where I in the end exhibited that cut thing.
Yeah.
I made a print of it and exhibited it with an inflated waterbed. So it's this kind of blown up thing plus this kind of cut. So it was a thing about surfaces and skins and what's underneath and whatever. But afterwards I went to a party and there was a guy there who was an old style painter, and we had a big argument about process basically and what objects meant in the world. And he was very scathing. I mean, after I'd been talking to him for a while, we'd been kind of bantering back and forth, he sort of looked at me and said, "You're a Sydney College of the Arts guy, aren't you?" Yeah, I am. And he said, "Yeah, you guys are ideologues.
Okay.
The market rules,
Yeah.
If you can't sell it, then, it's bullshit."
Okay.
And I went, "Yeah, mate, just standing there with your paint-spattered beret on and the guy who goes to France, south of France for the light, and please don't talk to me about ideologues,
Yeah.
So there was that thing going on all the time. But there was a really strong contemporary art photography group there. I didn't feel like I was alienated from them at all.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And of course, installation was in its ascendancy at that time, so...
Yeah, and is that when you were kind of getting more into doing, like, using spaces and, like, being... I mean, you already said with the wallpaper that it was already site-specific.
Yeah.
But then when you were doing more installation pieces towards the end of the 90s and the early 2000s...
They were always site-specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't ever something that I could make in a studio and drag in. It just never was. I mean, sometimes I used to make things... in order to be dragged in, but they'd always be something which was made in response to a particular forthcoming event. Somehow I'd go there and check it out. And also I had a couple of experiences where I planned to do things and I got sidetracked by things that I discovered.
Okay.
Once, for example, I was on my way to an exhibition at First Draft that I was going to put up, and I had my notebooks and what I was going to put in there, and it was all just going to be really easy. I'd had it all planned out. And then I looked out of the window of the bus, and we were going along, the shops are going past, and there was a second-hand shop, and there was this ceramic statue of a dog in there, and I just something happened, and I just got out of the bus. Walked back and bought this dog, and then everything that I planned to put in the gallery just no, I has to do something around the dog.
Oh, okay.
And that thing now, if I think about it, that thing that I did then is the piece that sticks in my mind as being the most sort of significant thing that I did personally.
Yeah, really. Wow.
Yeah, but just because I allowed that thing to come in, allowed it to come in. I didn't censor it. It was a strong enough kind of connection to my unconscious somehow. It's that classic surrealist thing.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I'm a surrealist at heart, I think.
Yeah.
Somehow, the eruption of the what's the word? The eruption. I can't remember what the phrase is, but something spectacular comes into the everyday and just shifts everything around.
Yeah.
And so I've always, I like that. I like to make a space for that to happen in the work that I do.
Yeah. And was this around the time, like when was it initially that you went to Vienna? Was that around this period, or that was also a bit later?
No. Well, I suppose it's another example of that. I went to Vienna at the end of...
Because it was there you went for an exhibition, wasn't it?
Yeah, I went over for an exhibition. I knew people from Vienna in Sydney. I met them in Sydney. And I was part of this show that was going over there, organised by one of these people. So I went over to Vienna and I thought, actually, why do I need to go back? Because Sydney was becoming harsh.
Yeah.
And Vienna wasn't harsh. It was sort of a much more welcoming kind of atmosphere for artists, I thought.
Okay.
That's the way I perceived it. Sydney was always something that was... you felt weird being an artist there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Like compared to when you were at Sydney College, for example? Like how
Yeah, Sydney College of the Arts was like a sheltered workshop.
Mm-hmm.
There everything seemed fine. It didn't matter what you did. Everybody was a bit weird.
Mm-hmm.
They had an intake policy which wasn't based around how many credit points you got in your exams or anything. It was just like they interviewed people and they just took a bunch of weird people. That was Jim Allen's, the guy that was running Sydney College at that time. That was his thing. He thought that what you should do is organise he had a term for it. I can't remember what the term was, but you should organise a group of people, a diverse group of people.
Yeah. And
then you bung them all together and allow them to interact, and you get fruitful result.
Yeah.
And it worked at Sydney College in that time. It was really, really fascinating place to be. You'd see people there that you would never... You can't imagine why they'd be in an art school. Why are they there? Strange.
Yeah.
But great. Really good. But then when you come out into the real world and you have to deal with real estate agents and it's just horrible. There was no sympathy for artists, I don't think, really. You're sort of a weirdo. Why would anybody want to make art? There's no money in that.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah, so you had the exhibition in Vienna, and then you thought, don't need to be in Sydney at this time. This is where I'll start to set up shop. I can be a bit more at home here now.
Yeah.
But you've essentially existed between Sydney and Vienna, like throughout, like close to 20 years now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what impact has that had on your practice in general?
I think it's been it's sort of interesting. I mean, in some ways, I think it's been really good for me personally to be able to go back and forth. But then again, I don't know that really. Maybe it would have been better if I just sort of committed to being in one place and not flitted back and forth.
Yeah.
Because it's meant somehow that I'm not really a part of either place.
Yeah.
I'm kind of floating between places. Once when I went back, one of my old colleagues in Sydney College of the Arts I hadn't seen for years and years, she said, it's like seeing a ghost. Oh, God.
But I guess because you were exhibiting in both places, essentially.
Yeah.
You had like a base in Europe and then a base in Australia.
Yeah, that's right. So, I don't know.
And then through that time, because I'm curious about how you come to the installation pieces, knowing that before it was very much photographic, sculptural, and they're often ideas that are conceived in the studio and you're working in a specific way. But then when you are working site-specific with installations, were you looking for specific places to install things, or was it like a call for submissions, or did people approach you and say, there's a certain festival or there's a different event taking place and we want you to conceptualise something for this environment?
I think all of that practice in the 90s was based around the availability of artist-run spaces.
Okay.
I mean, when we were talking before about those last photographs that I took, I took them around to commercial spaces before I showed them anywhere.
Yeah. And
all of the commercial spaces that I spoke to said, we really like it, it's great, we really like them. Pity it's photography work, we can't sell photography.
Yeah.
And I kind of went, yeah, okay, right. And I remember one person said, if you're in London or New York, it wouldn't be a problem. But here in Sydney, it's conservative, we can't sell it, we don't really want to show it.
Yeah. Were you with Stills at that stage?
No.
Because they were around, when did they start? 1990, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember when they started. I think by the time Stills started up, I'd kind of thought to myself that I didn't really want to be associated with photography as a thing, as a practice. I didn't want to think about myself as a photographer. I didn't think about myself as a photographer, even though I did, take photographs for a living at various points, documenting other people's work. But I didn't see that as being an essential part of my practice, even though I used images most of the time in the works that I made.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It was mostly the independent gallery scene which gave me the opportunity to do stuff. And we just kind of write to them and say, I'd like to show something. And they go, oh yeah, okay, right. If they, and they'd slot you in and that kind of thing. It was a scene, it was an active scene.
Yeah. So, do you feel how much has that changed for you over the years?
A lot. I mean, that's all based on real estate.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
It's real estate. So there are still artist-run spaces in Sydney, of course. Although I'm a bit out of touch with it now, but you have to pay a lot of money to rent them. And I just no. It's sort of a different thing if it's going to cost big money to sort of put things on.
And in Vienna, it was similar. They had a lot of project spaces and artist-run.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. It's funny. I mean, I haven't really shown anything since in a kind of gallery. This is the first show that I've had for a few years now. Yeah. And I kind of thought I probably wouldn't again.
Oh,
even though I had all this stuff that's in this room now, even though I kept on working on it, I couldn't imagine it being in a space somehow. I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
I don't know, I don't know, it's sort of, maybe I just kind of figured that it was somehow a dead-end street.
Yeah?
Maybe that's a bad thing to say to you.
No, I'm curious to know. You mean like having an exhibition of pieces that are, essentially to be bought by the public.
Yeah,
it's different than.
I think that's it. I think it's all about money somehow.
Yeah,
it's about money, and I've got a weird relationship to money and the commercial world and the market and all those kinds of things. I just I don't trust it. I don't like it. I don't like what it does to people's sort of creative practice.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I was spoiled by that little window in the 1970s and 1980s at Sydney College of the Arts when that wasn't even considered. It wasn't part of it. It wasn't thought about for a moment. all of those things that would normally kind of, you know, when I talked about that argument that I had with the guy with the beret at the party, he was a believer in the market.
Yeah.
You know, he was a classic, you know, if you can't sell it, then it's crap.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I just didn't believe that. I just thought that was fundamentally incorrect. And I'd been used to being in a scene where people could make a whole lot of different things which would be absolutely unsaleable, but it would still be something which would somehow be a point from which culture can arise.
Yeah.
You know, it's something you have a conversation between people who may have nothing in common, and they all produce these things, and the way those things are looked at in a group, and the way that the influences that those conversations bring to bear on everybody. That's what culture is. That's what produces culture.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was killed absolutely by questions of whether it can be sold or not.
Yeah,
sure. No. People who are consumers of art in that way are not necessarily thinking about anything apart from status and how it looks in their living room or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of an ideologue when it comes to that kind of thing. Maybe that guy was right about me. I am a Sydney College ideologue. But I think that probably I feel like that because I had such a bad experience in my 20s in the commercial world.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was a horrible, horrible place. And then I went to Sydney College and I realised that there could be another kind of interaction between people which wasn't based on, you know, status and money and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I built up this kind of idea of it. And then when I was thrown back into the marketplace again, and I realised, but that's actually the art world's just like that.
Yeah.
I went, okay, right. You know, I sort of got deflated.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I guess, I know from my own experience, I guess because installation is so experiential, it's not based on, this would look good in my office, or this would go really well in the lounge. It is more about, it's a catalyst for dialogue and for people to talk about things and to look at the world in the way they may not otherwise. Yeah.
And I think that, maybe I mentioned it to you in an email earlier on. I think when I made those last pictures that ended up being collected, but I remember standing in front of them at the opening after an absolute pain trying to get it there and on the wall in time. Oh God, it's a nightmare. And people were going, wow, really cool, you know, because, you know, and I thought, well, actually, when I was listening to them, I was thinking, but they're not actually seeing the work.
Yeah.
It was like they were seeing the thing which represented something. It was like, here is a big Cibachrome hanging on the wall. It's like, ooh, you know, there's something about the power of that object. Wouldn't have mattered what it was. It was just the power of that object as a thing which signified technological advancement and money. And I thought, well, it's just they're not seeing it. So I thought, what happens if I just leave that bit out and they have to just go into the room where it was made, and there's no way they can think about how they can own it. They can only think about what it's like being in the space and looking around and thinking. And, you know, it was a non-transferable experience where you just go in. It was just a classic. That's why people made installations.
Yeah.
Because they were not transferable. You know, they just were things that you had to experience and they can't be collected.
Yeah.
You know, they're sort of anti-collection somehow, even though they're collected now, but, you know.
Yeah, well, then they transport, like, an entire space and put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you remove it from the environment, then it changes how you receive it.
Yeah. But, you know, I don't know. Maybe I'll soften on that a bit. It's been interesting over the last couple of days talking to people here.
Yeah, so because, obviously you've been here for Gallery Weekend, and for us, it's the most time that you have such a concentrated number of people coming through the space, wanting to look at art and experiencing it that wouldn't otherwise. And I know when people ask me about this time of the year, it's almost like because galleries are still in this sort of strange space where people think, I'm allowed to go in. Is it okay?
Or go down the stairs.
Yeah, until you go down the stairs. But then it's almost like that, those couple of days, it's like the general public and people that are maybe curious but not brave enough not brave enough, but like, is it okay if I do this? It's kind of like, I've got permission now to go into these spaces. I can look at things, and the artist is here. I can talk to him or her, and I can ask them questions. How is that then, especially being outside of the commercial context for so long, and like all the work in this room at least is from the last couple of years, so it's new and most of it hasn't been exhibited at all, to kind of get the direct feedback from people who have not only never seen any of your work before, but they're seeing new work. And I remember you said when we installed it, this was the first time you've seen everything together, like in a space, and not just a few pieces from the studio.
Yeah. And I think that what was good about this, in a way that was different from other times that I've shown things, is, I mean, it's kind of like a mini retrospective in some ways.
Yeah.
Even though it's sort of like, all the work in this room is newish work. It's not, it's never been shown before, and it's kind of the oldest pieces in here are only a few years old, and they've never been anywhere before. So seeing them all together and being able to make connections between them, even though they're quite formally different, but they're
aesthetically quite different.
Yeah, they have a different. You have to approach them in a different way. I mean, these ones, okay, they're framed pictures, so you approach them, but there's a different kind of thing about how your personal space in relationship to these things is different from here, so they all have a different way of affecting you physically as you approach them, which is quite interesting. And the content is somehow the same, but somehow different, so that the differences play off one another in an interesting way, I think.
Yeah, because I think when we first put the show up, we were talking about how each of these ones is connected to the past, to memory, and the other point I wanted to ask you about is you said that noise is a big part of your interest in your practice and how you incorporate it within your work. How would you say that noise, like within these images, like how does that, as like a central focus or a reoccurring theme, how would you say that kind of exists within these images?
Well, I mean, if I go back to that experience that I had in the 90s in the bus, when I saw the ceramic dog, that's noise. Because I had that's what I mean by noise. It's like I had an idea, I had it all worked out, it was all kind of nice and neat, I'd figured out what I was going to put in there, and I'd sourced it, and I knew where it was going to come from. I was on the way to the gallery to start measuring things, blah, blah, blah. If you get to that stage where it's all planned, fine.
Yeah.
Great. Show goes up in 4 days. Done.
Yeah.
What's the problem? You just kind of logistics work it all out to it. And then this thing, it's like, what? It blew all the other stuff, just blew it away. But that's not something that I planned. It's not something, it's just something that caught me as if I'd been on a different bus and be sitting on the other side, or, if they hadn't put it in the window that day, or if somebody had sold it, if somebody had bought it two hours before. All of those things, it's like the unknowable kind of mess that's around you all the time, which you tend to filter it out. It's because it's noise. You don't need it. I don't need that information. I don't need to buy anything from the second-hand shop. I know what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to do it. But then this thing comes up and it blows it all out.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think is I just love it. I love it. I guess that all of these things in some way are an acknowledgement that that thing, that unknown quantity that's just there all the time, all around you, surrounding you, it's like there's always enough in the present moment to do what you want to do. You don't need to plan it more than that. I know that sounds a bit weird, but there's something about the sufficiency of the present and how noise is sort of a resource, not something that needs to be excluded in order for the information to become more clear.
Yeah. Well, I think, I can see it certainly with the ones in this space and after we spoke about it, because essentially the main subject of each of the found images, the found photographs, like these images from the newspaper, like the main focus of why the photograph was taken in the first place has been taken away, and you've only got the background or the noise or whatever's surrounding like the main focal point, and now that has become the main subject.
Yeah, like in this one, for example,
So the remains of line of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing that I found was, I can't say, but I guess that anybody else would have looked at it and gone, ooh, straight in the bin.
Yeah.
I mean, it's surprising it was even there. And the only reason it was there was because the guy who ran the place, it was just like a junkyard. It was most of it outside, and there were things full of water, and it was really junk.
Yeah.
And I just happened to find this thing buried, and it kind of struck me in the same way as the dog did.
Mm-hmm.
But it was absolute garbage. It was, just trash. Horrible. I had to kind of prise all the bits apart.
Yeah.
It stank of mould, and I was like, just put it all out so it dries in some way, and yet you get this out of it, which is somehow, well, I don't know, it's sort of the opposite of that. It's something which is coherent and fascinating to look at, and somehow kind of, it's been transformed. So that thing that was just noise, the kind of thing that would just be dirt, and you kick it out of the way, and sort of, it's a resource. You can reformulate it and make it work in a different way.
No, it's really nice. I think even how the recontextualization of the work as well, it's much larger than it would be. Like the small portrait photograph is now like an A3 or an A2 size, and just the level of detail in what was once like a small object that was destroyed in the flooded basement is now, well, I guess it's elevated as well. It's on the wall of a gallery now.
Yeah, that's right. It's in a place which is, justifies its existence.
Yeah, essentially. Has there been anything like talking to people about the work? Because I guess this is the first time you've had to speak about the work, the first time it's been shown. Was there anything that was revealed to you that you didn't see before, perhaps? Because I know each person that I've spoken to has had different things that have come away from it, and a handful of people have said it's quite, some people have seen how morbid the work is, and they've said, this is really, it really affected them quite emotionally, even though you can just look at it from a very, aesthetically it is, even though a lot of the things are destroyed or they're damaged and they've just been rescued essentially, they're still quite aesthetically interesting. But then there are a handful of people I know speaking to about the work that felt quite emotionally affected by it, because it is to do with decay, and that the people in the images have been removed from the images, like the postcards or the smaller photographs off to the side. Like you burnt out the photograph using a magnifying glass. So I like this connection back to photography, that the photograph was created by light. There's the shadow of the person in the photograph, so the sun was behind them. Now the sun's behind you. You're using the magnifying lens to burn away what was there. Yeah, it's like a kind of a negative version of the original act. Here's the thing: I'm preserving the subject, and now I'm doing the same thing, but I'm removing the subject. It's like an inversion. Yeah, but also that, all of the things, all of these different items, because they're found, and because, we take photographs because we want to remember something. These are all things that were cherished, that have been thrown away or have been forgotten about. And so when you're looking at, you can look at them and just go, this is a fascinating thing that I found, but it's also that, what happened to those people? Who did this belong to? And why was it thrown away, or how did the people come to find it? Is it just the deceased estate? Something else go wrong? And there's so many charged stories and emotions and memories that we can impose our own narrative onto them, but you can't help but be reminded of our mortality through the work, I think, which is also quite poetic, that it is what's been. Well, it's the remains, really, you call it the remains of light and love, and it is, is this what's left of the guy who's, I guess, a fictional character anyway. That's right, I think I was just going to say that the thing about morbidity is interesting, because I spoke to a couple of people who said that it was sort of creepy, or, somebody talked about, censorship, those kind of classic photographs where people from the Politburo have been scrubbed out, those kinds of things. People disappearing from history by, somebody's action with photographs. Yeah. And that's all there too. I think that's all there as well.
maybe with the silver ones, it's where it comes closest to being kind of. I think the silver ones are interesting because they're the only ones out of all of the things which are still living.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the silver is being transformed, so it'll be different when the show comes down to what it was when the show went up.
Yeah.
So there's this process continuing on. It's still, and you know, somebody mentioned the other day that. He said, "Oh, if I buy one, that means in 20 years it'll be a different photograph." And I said, "Yeah, well."
And he didn't like that, or he did?
No, he thought that was good.
Yeah.
He thought that was good, and that's what I think is really good about them too. I like the way that they're still registering light.
Yeah, no.
In a way that the original photograph did.
Yeah.
For just a split second, but they're just continuous, a super long exposure.
Yeah.
For as long as that thing exists, they'll be continuing to be shifted around.
Yeah, no, that's nice. I think even thinking about it now as well, with each of the works, like before when you were talking about the original reason why you got tired of photography was because it was so labour intensive and that you had, like there was too much emphasis on the craft and the artisanal aspect of it. But each of these works has, your hand is very much present in each of these works, and it has taken time, like even to find the images. I thought, like looking at the ones with the holes burnt out, had you made them in Australia, that would be quite quick. But here in Europe, it's mostly overcast.
You have to wait. It's no good in winter, forget it.
Yeah. But also the remains of Lionel Love, just how carefully taken apart this destroyed album and then created a collage from it to make a new piece. Like, it's all quite time intensive as well. Like, it's not just, okay, everything's digital now, I can put it through the computer. It's much faster now than what it would have been. Like getting the right exposures, going to the printer, getting everything made again. And I guess also the fragility of the work as well. Like even these ones here, they're still photographs, but they're from a time when it was less, like the photos were utilitarian. Like have they served their purpose? Yes, okay, we can throw them away now.
Yeah.
But not, we don't have to put on white gloves and be very careful with them because we need to make sure that this is going to remain perfect for the next 200 years.
Yeah.
But then you've taken what was destroyed and what was discarded and handled it with this delicacy to bring it, I guess, back into the fine art context, which is quite nice. But in a way, I think as well that people can appreciate things, like you say, with the aspect of noise or background or what we don't necessarily notice or take any attention to look at again and to think about it and, to imagine, who was Lionel Love or what happened to the people that were in the photographs.
Yeah, in a way that you probably wouldn't. I was talking about that with somebody else. It's like whenever you look at an old photograph, like those photographs are there, you look at the subject of the picture and you look at their clothes and the kind of expression they had on their faces and all that kind of stuff. You sort of telescope down into that content, that original kind of connection with the person. With the subject removed, you can't do that. You're blocked from telescoping down into the content, and you have to kind of think about what's around it and why. You have to. It engages your imagination. I think it engages your imagination much more than if the subject was actually there still. Because you've seen thousands of photographs of old people and kind of, it's a really common thing. But when that's gone, you have to think about all these different things. Just the simple act of saying, no, we're not going to go down that track.
Yeah.
Stop here. And then you have to kind of go sideways. And that's when the noise can come in. The things that you might not have considered come in.
you think you'll exhibit more in the future now? Like, has this kind of re-inspired you to think maybe I can go back into like commercial art spaces and exhibit work again? Or it's like, no, this is a nice thing to do just for a period, and then I'm happy just to go back to the studio and like just keep making things. It's not changed your what am I trying to say? You stepped away from exhibiting in galleries and just saying, I'll do my installations in project spaces. I like making these things anyway, but I don't have that. I don't feel the need to engage with the commercial aspect of photography, or the commercial aspect of the contemporary art world.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of, to be perfectly honest, I don't really think about the future very much at all. When I do, I get a pain. And to go back to that, that other pivotal thing about putting those last photographs on the wall, and everybody was really liking them and going, wow, wow, wow.
Yeah.
But at the time I thought, well, actually, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Do I make more of these? I could have just continued to make more of them, but as a lot of people did, and it became kind of famous, whatever, or maybe not, but whatever. They just kind of they settle on a kind of a thing that they do, and then they continue to do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any other ideas. When I thought about it, really, I could have made more of those things. I'd worked out a strategy for generating images. There's lots of things I could have made, but I just didn't feel like I had another idea, a fresher idea, an interesting idea. I didn't want to just keep on making something that I knew how to do. So it's that thing. I mean, that's why the synthesiser's been really interesting, because I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And it provided me all sorts of problems that I haven't had to deal with for quite a long time. So it's like, first of all, how do I make it work? And then how do I get it out in a way which can be public?
Yeah, because did you build the synthesizer?
Well, I built it, not really built it.
Put the modules together.
Yeah, I kind of amassed a sort of a distinctive group of things that do a certain thing that I wanted to do.
Yeah. Have you been using it for long? 2 years.
Yeah.
And do you perform as well in Vienna?
Yeah, I've only started doing that in the last kind of 6 months, but but it's a different dynamic altogether. It's really a different dynamic, and it means that I've also been making films. I've been putting films with the sound, and that's quite interesting. I hadn't done that previously. So, I mean, those things might have a possibility for gallery, for a gallery distribution rather than just a performance. Like, for example, I've never done an ambient sound installation like this with a synthesizer previously. I've done ambient sound in spaces, but I haven't done something with a synth in a space like this before. And I think that seemed to be quite well received by people. Yeah,
I was always curious to see how it would go, and I think, there was a bit of fun.
Gallerist,
No, at the start, we just certain frequencies that were just like, I don't know, cutting into my brain. But
not that noise, please. Any noise but that.
But I think I liked how it went. How it complemented everything. And you kind of think at first, because everything in here is so organic, but then the synthesizer is like the antithesis of that. It's like, how is this going to work? Whenever I've experienced those kind of like noise, kind of avant-garde experimental performances, it always has been in a performance context. You go and watch somebody in stage, like making the adjustments, so you have like a visual in the sense of a video or some kind of film playing in the background, but you would never go into essentially a static environment with a synth playing. So, I mean, it was nice to see actually how people really received it and how it kind of played off of the work. So that was really nice.
I thought it was good too. And I didn't have any idea how it would eventuate. And even the way it was kind of connected to the open books. In a way that was completely like, actually, this works quite well there. Strange. So I don't know about the future thing. I don't know. I mean, it's the same sort of situation I was talking before. I mean, it'd be easy to keep on making these things. But somehow it's the idea that's important. And for me, it's the being able to immerse yourself in this idea. And as you're working on it, you're thinking about how it all works conceptually and what the associations are produced and stuff. But then why make more of them, sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess once you've kind of worked that idea out, then
I think it is very much a way of figuring out how things operate in the world, or how people's perceptions operate in the world, and the relationship between perception and technology and kind of history and all those kinds of things. It's sort of like it's really a fluid field. It's nice to kind of work into that. I guess that's what I thought about art school. It was like a way to, it seemed there when I was there that it was a way where you could develop a philosophy about how you are in the world.
Yeah,
how things come into being in the world and how they get treated in the world, ethics somehow.
Yeah. No, but I think like when you say it like that, and even looking at the work, for me, I think it makes it more authentic, because you're not just producing a product. Because if it is, okay, people really like these silver things, I'll just churn them out, and then that's it. I've got a good income from that. But then if you're, I guess like you said, you kind of this sort of ideologue way of looking at things. You're like, well, I've worked that out now, and that's finished. I need to do a new thing. Like I don't need to keep making that same thing, and it doesn't fit in with the rest of how I approach the world. Like I'm looking for new things all the time, and I want to find new solutions and look for new ways of experiencing and discovering. If I've just found, okay, if I add this to that and then people like it, and I just keep doing that over and over again, then I may as well go work in an office, because I'll do this.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And I think that's, my formative, decade of working in offices and stuff in my 20s, like, no way I want to go back to that mental space. No way, just anything but that, rather be dead.
Chris, and thanks for taking the time out. I'm really admired to present your work, particularly work that you've not exhibited in the past. And I guess look forward to talking more in the future and hopefully continuing the work together. So thanks a lot.
Well, thank you. I found it to be, it's been a really great experience, and it's been really good doing it over the weekend with lots of people who've been coming in and stuff. And it's been really nice, intense conversations, and probably better than you'd get in an opening somehow.
Yeah, I agree.
Just because it's a huge amount of people passing through, and it's been really useful.
Oh, I'm happy to hear.
There it was, myself, Michael Dooney, together with artist Chris Fortescue, recorded on the 1st of May 2018. I hope the mild echo wasn't too distracting, the recording environment wasn't ideal, and we'll be improving this with each instalment. Chris's solo exhibition Jarvis Dooney runs from the 27th of April until the 23rd of June 2018. There are links below to his website and installation reviews of the work at the gallery, though I'd recommend viewing it in person if you do have the opportunity. Stay tuned for future episodes. We'll be interviewing other artists and those active in the field of contemporary art, also be discussing our experiences and the reality of owning and running an independent gallery in the rapidly changing art world landscape. Until then, thank you for listening.